Hey everybody, welcome to DFStatistics first live show. We're
maybe last. I don't know.
Maybe last. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. We're going to wait for a lot of you to funnel in, but obviously some of you are going to be watching this on replay. So we're going to talk from the very beginning. Now that we are live, I'm going to go ahead and send out some links so everyone can join us. So Scott, go ahead and entertain everybody while I'm putting out some links here.
No, we don't want that.
Tell everyone how your week 6 went.
All right. I think I was like right around like 2.5 like ROI, which like not fantastic, but decently profitable week. It's a weird week. Definitely a big letdown after like the insanity of week 5. Definitely scores down a bit. Cash lines were like way down. It was such a difference from last week where you're seeing like 200. Like if you were at like 190, you were still sweating it out. Just watching the cash line move. And like this past week, it was more reasonable. I think it was like, I think I had one like as low as like 148 cash in a cash game. So a lot lower this week. So I don't know. This is a pretty heavy bye week. A lot of injuries going out there.
Week.
Yeah. So I don't know. Matchups there's a couple of pretty interesting matchups. I don't know. What did you think overall about this like slate
for last week or this week coming up?
Well, here? This week coming up.
This week coming up. We'll get into it, but it looks like definitely a week you want to pay up for running back. There's just especially the bye weeks now, it doesn't look like something that you can really escape paying up, at least in that area. But like usual, there's tons of volume or tons of value at the wide receiver position, and even at quarterback. So we're gonna let a little more people.
It's a lot riskier value this week. I feel like than the last few weeks we've seen. Like the last few weeks, there's been 3 or 4 like pretty safe like value plays at every position.
Yes.
And like this week, there's some decent ones, but there's a lot more, I think, kind of personal preference that's going to have to play into your constructions this week.
Yeah, and I have a few picks that are going to confuse people.
Maybe my mind will change a little bit as the week closes out and we get a little clear idea on some of the injury stuff. But I don't know. It's I don't think it's as cut and dry with some of the value picks as it has been the last few weeks.
I agree here. All right, so we are going to go ahead and get started with the quarterback positions because by now a few people have started to file in. Hello, everybody. Looks like we got a few people dropping in. You can feel free to say hi, ask questions throughout the show. We're going to go ahead with our player pool like we always do, starting at quarterback. And we'll try to share a screen here so we can actually have something for you to look at as far as the DraftKings player pool. So starting right at quarterback. Let's go ahead and get that started. Sorry, here we go. Boom.
Nailed
it. How beautiful is that? Technology, everybody. Quarterbacks. So how do you like it at the very, very, very tippy top? Is there anyone that you want to pay for that is kind of like the chalk, like the top 4 or 5 guys?
I think across the board, you can make pretty safe arguments for most of the top 3 at every position this week. It's just a matter of, I think there's very few that are the best plays at the very top. But I think there's a lot of decent plays there. Starting at quarterback.
How about this guy right here?
Yeah, I was gonna say starting at quarterback.
QB1.
Yeah, so Watson, he's definitely a bit expensive. You've seen his price kind of climb up a little bit the last few weeks it held steady last week, which was nice, but it's jumped up a little bit. Nothing crazy though, just a $300 increase. So I don't mind that. I don't mind this matchup either. Indy's been decent this year defensively, not like terrible. They're just kind of okay. But really the thing that interests me the most with Watson has to do with some of the improvements they've made. He has been sacked once the last 2 weeks. That was a big problem for them. The few weeks prior to that, he'd been getting hit a lot. If there's one team that knows the value of keeping your quarterback upright, it's definitely the Colts.
They haven't given up a sack in 2 straight games. Everybody, yeah, one of them was to the Falcons, who we'll get into in a little bit. They're not sacking anybody, but still, they haven't given up 2 sacks in 2 games. And for the Texans, no matter who it is, that's pretty big.
Yeah, so I actually looked through at some of the time the time to throw for Watson, like week by week. So it goes starting at week 1, 273, 301, 302, 291, 243, 261. So that's his 3 best weeks by far, have been his 3 quickest, time to throw weeks. I think they've made a conscious effort here to get the ball out of his hands faster. I mean, like, that line's not gonna just like magically get better overnight.
Yeah.
I think it's been a bit of a philosophy change here to try to get the ball out faster. The run game has been a lot better the last few weeks. That's kind of stabilized out a little bit now. So that's definitely helping.
Also, a little grain of salt, taking advantage of the other teams. Although a lot of people know the Chiefs, key to beating the Chiefs is with the run. I don't think anyone saw Carlos Hyde. Well, some people thought he'd be a good play last week. We faded him because we just didn't.
I used him.
Did you use him?
I did, yeah.
I did not. Because that's the way to beat the Chiefs. That's obvious. I mean, now it's super obvious, right? But I didn't think they'd lean on him as much as they did.
Yeah, well, I wrote him up in my column, and I did play him a little bit, and I needed a cheap running back, and it worked out.
Hey, Watson's been doing all this without Nuke. He'll show up eventually. We hope.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is you got to keep throwing him in there, but man, it hurts when you're seeing like 9 out of a $7,500 receiver slot.
All right, we don't have to dig too much into this. This is Deshaun Watson. He's good to play. Lamar Jackson at Seattle. We don't have to dig into that. He's fine. Kyler Murray. He'll probably be the chalk of the entire week at 6,700, I would think, versus the Giants. I don't know how I feel about this because I like some people that are cheaper. I do like Kyler, though. He's starting to run like a madman. He's like already, even after not running his first couple of games, I think he's now on pace for like 800 or 900 yards rushing. He's got Christian Kirk back, and he's obviously facing the Giants. So do you think it's 6,700 that he is kind of worth the chalk? Do you think that he's like, do we think that this is like maybe his big breakout game? There's other people I'd rather have more than him. So I did want to discuss him because I'll have some exposure here, but he's not one of my favorite plays of the week. And I expect him to probably be the chalk of the entire week at quarterback.
I think if you're going to pay up for one of the guys at quarterback and you want I think one of the safest returns, I think it's probably Kyler. Yeah, I mean, he's got that very safe. Well, he and Jackson both have that very safe, rushing floor that they're going to throw in there. You're always going to be able to get a little bit of something there. The Cardinals, they've been getting a little healthier as far as the receivers. So if he's going to actually have his full group running and running without restriction, that's only going to help him. It's a good matchup too. I mean, yes, they're going to be on the road in New York, but it's not like the Giants are any kind of fearsome defense that you're really going to, have to scheme hard for. So it's a good matchup. He's, and plus the nice thing too is just with the pace that they play, they're constantly going to have a high pace. So even if they're not doing well, you're still going to get a lot of, volume there.
Amazing amount of targets, amazing amount of plays. I mean, David Johnson is like RB5 on the entire year. And he hasn't been really that good. That speaks more to how bad running back has been rather than how good DJ has been. But it also speaks to how valuable the Arizona offense is in general. So, like you just said, a lot of plays. Moving down the list for $200 less is Josh Allen versus Miami. If there's not going to be Kyler's not chalk, then Josh Allen probably is. We talked about this a couple weeks ago before the bye. Pick up all the Bills. They're about to go on a cakewalk of a schedule, starting with Miami. I mean, John Brown, we'll get to, is ridiculously priced this week. Cole Beasley's playable. Devin Singletary's back practicing. This isn't going to be a very nice one for Miami. Anyone thinking that the Bills aren't capable of a offensive outbreak or a slaughter, you're wrong, because we may see one this week. They're going to run the ball like usual, but Josh Allen for 6,500. The only reason I don't love this more is because he's 6,500 for $200 more. I think I'd rather go with Kyler, but Josh Allen in himself, should be in for a pretty big game here versus the Dolphins. Do you like Allen, or is that $200 price difference between him and Kyler kind of scare you off?
I mean, I can understand the argument for it. If I had to, it's the Dolphins. Like they're terrible. If it was a decent defense, I might worry a little bit about, maybe Allen having some turnover issues. But I mean, those don't really kill you that much, in DraftKings. So no, I mean, I think you're right. I mean, it's really it's not a big gap to get up to Kyler. So I would imagine it's probably going to be a lot more Murray on the ownership. But yeah, definitely like Allen's matchup too. You might be able to get a little bit of leverage there if everybody's going to be hopping on Kyler. Do you know off the top of your head if Xavier Howard is going to be in this game? Because I would imagine he'll just lock down. He'll just be shadowing John Brown if he's in.
I don't think it matters at this point.
Okay.
I mean, it wouldn't scare me off even a little bit. The John Brown injury in practice scares me, but Xavier Howard doesn't exactly. I mean, I know last week with Howard out, it made Terry McLaurin like a slam dunk, but I think Smokey's good enough to where if the stuff he does, he can do with or without Xavier Howard, I think.
Okay. So the injury in practice today's worries you more than potentially the shadow coverage?
Yeah, I mean, we do the show on a Wednesday, everybody, so you have to pay attention to the injuries going up to it. So moving down, we go through a lot of the, if everyone's wondering, oh, why are they talking about so many quarterbacks? We will tell you who the guys we are truly interested in. So far, it's basically just Kyler for me, but we'll get down to the people we really like. I know you want to talk about Russell Wilson. You can't really go wrong with him. I'm not going to be playing him this week just because there's other people I like a lot more. He's sitting right here at 6,600 versus Baltimore, who got themselves a shiny new toy from the Rams. I don't know if he'll be in there for this one. And if he is, I don't know how involved it is because you can't really just throw a cornerback in, like especially not unless he's like a complete shadow guy. You can't just like throw him directly into the entire game plan, I assume, on a short week's notice. So what do you like about the – yeah, go ahead.
Well, no, it's just a matchup. The Baltimore secondary, we kind of talked about it a little bit in the past. Like they're not that good. Well, I'll say this: if they were all completely healthy, they might be better than they are. But as it is, they're all pretty banged up, and they've just been nowhere near the Ravens defenses of the past this year. So they don't really, if you're afraid of them, that's just the name. If you actually look at the results, there's no reason to fade a quarterback in a good matchup at home against them. So, and we've seen Wilson, he's probably the MVP of the league at this point. I mean, or maybe if not the MVP, definitely in the discussion. So, I like this play. The only thing I want to see is what the target distribution looks like, moving forward. Now that Disley's out, I'm not really sure that they're just going to hop on to, using, Luke Wilson or,
I think David Moore will probably get more run now than he did. I don't think it'll necessarily just transfer over to the tight end. I think there'll be more creative ways in getting other guys involved.
Right. Yeah.
I get the feeling game script wise. I mean, I get that Baltimore can pass the ball when everyone's healthy, but I don't know. This one, this has like a Ingram versus Carson boring, low scoring game written all over it. Wouldn't surprise me if I'm wrong, but
well, that's the thing. Even if it is, Wilson throughout his career has been so efficient. I don't worry as much about pace with Wilson as, you might, with somebody like Phil Rivers or somebody else, some other kind of middle of the line quarterback.
I have no problem with him in cash. I for some reason, I think that explosive ceiling, which you kind of have to search out in DFS to win. You can't predict 50-point games, but you can certainly find games where you don't feel that ceiling is there. And I feel like this is one of those games.
Yeah.
Now on to the guy that is my definite quarterback start of the week, and that is Mr. Sucks Ass Jared Goff. That's right. That's his new nickname, Sucks Ass Jared Goff. They're going into this one at Atlanta, which I guess is really all I need to say, at Atlanta. He had a horrible week 6, but versus the top pass DVOA defense in the NFL. And we all know how the offensive line is terrible. They did nothing with all these trades to boost that. They got a bad center.
they get a mediocre interior lineman. Good job, guys.
So anyway, last week they faced the top pass DVOA. The Falcons are 29th in DVOA. We already know their struggles. Also, horrible pass rush. They have failed to sack Deshaun Watson and Marcus Mariota back-to-back weeks. And those are two guys that are on their back constantly. The Mariota one is really disturbing. So anyone that is like kind of afraid of Jared Goff, under that pressure, I don't think he'll be under pressure this week. I mean, start all of your Rams. And the fact that Todd Gurley may not be ready to go again love it even more. Love Everett, love Cooks, love Kupp, love Woods, everyone. Plus, it's in a dome. I don't think that, Atlanta's going to have a whole lot they can do to Jared Goff here. So I think McVay is going to try to show off. And if you're season long, this will be a beautiful opportunity to showcase Jared Goff right before you ship him off your team. So he will be in most of my lineups this week. What do you think of Mr. Goff, other than him being a bad quarterback?
Yeah, I mean, this is a very similar spot, I feel like, to Cousins last week, where it's really bad quarterback, but such a good matchup that you kind of you're gonna do. Not a lot of people did the Cousins, but a lot of people were joined you and I and the Diggs roller coaster. It wasn't great, right when things started up, you didn't feel fantastic, but it quickly returned some nice value. So yeah, I mean, I think if we're all expecting a nice rebound from the offensive skill position guys here, except for probably the running backs, that kind of has to come from Goff too. So it's a little pricier than I would love. Not that it's
62. I mean, 62 at Atlanta in a pretty high octane skill position. I don't know. I like it. I think it's priced.
No.
I think it's priced low, actually.
No, I mean, I think the price is fine. Like, definitely, if it was like in the fives, I'd be all over it for sure. I'm probably still going to do a good amount of Goff. Yeah, I mean, it's a really, really good matchup. You're right. I mean, there's nothing to worry about Atlanta here. Honestly,
let's say if it was in the fives, because you're looking at the Rams, who have struggled. Goff's not very good. He's at Atlanta. You have Gardner Minshew, who we'll probably talk about in a little bit. Why don't we talk about him right now? He's 5,400. And if I can locate him here, he's 5,400 at Cincinnati. So similar situation, but a worse quarterback. I don't think we can actually say that, but whatever. Whatever. I mean, a slight down ticket quarterback, arguably, definitely worse skill positions, definitely, but very bad matchup. So would you prefer him at 5,400? He can't even get a photo here on DraftKings. Come on, DraftKings. Give Gardner Minshew a photo.
Like one of the most photographed,
Kyler didn't even have a photo then. So, but no, would you rather have him at 5,400 at Cincinnati or Jared Goff at Atlanta? I mean, I'd rather roll with Goff because I think he literally could blow the roof off of that whole thing.
Yeah,
and they can step on Atlanta's throats to make a point.
For sure. Like the ceiling is much higher with Goff. Gardner, I have no problem either format using him, but definitely if for some reason, you found yourself desperately needing some sort of salary relief. I mean, that's not a terrible pivot to make.
Beautiful matchup. Do you think ownership will be gun shy because he had a beautiful matchup last week?
That's what I'm wondering.
I didn't get it.
Well, here's the thing: is like this is
obviously better than last week.
Oh, for sure. Like, this is a great matchup. I mean, when you're talking about like the matchups you want to get your offense right, your top two options are probably like Miami and Atlanta, and then it's probably Cincinnati and Washington in the next tier. So. Really, really good matchup here. I think it'll be interesting. I don't think anybody who really follows things closely is going to be scared off. I think you could see a lot of, novice players kind of just look at his numbers last week and just kind of jump off of him. But I mean, he's such a well-known quantity at this point in terms of like the name. Like everybody knows the name. Like if you follow the NFL at all, you've heard multiple stories of Gardner Minshew at this point. So I don't think he's necessarily going to sneak up on anybody. And especially, I mean, at this price makes no sense. This feels almost a little trappy from DraftKings. But yeah, I'll step in it. It's fine.
Yeah, they're not quite like Vegas. They're not trying to trap you. They just, in general, they make mistakes, and it happens sometimes. For a little more expensive, we skipped over this guy. For 5,600 is someone who's very interesting this week, and that is, we're going to reload him, Mr. Jacoby Brissett. He's got a photo. That Marlon Mack is kind of the name of the game for the Colts, but Houston's pretty good at defending the run, but it could be one of those trap things like the Ravens where people just throw on them. And I have pretty much two rules in DFS, folks. I don't like chasing matchups much, but there's two rules, right? Always start the slot receiver against PJ Williams. He's suspended, sadly. But the other one is throw in your wide receiver one versus Houston. That week, that's T.Y. Hilton this week. So the guy throwing the ball to him is Jacoby Brissett. One is to assume Houston will be up in this game, and the Colts will probably have to throw the ball and not be able to rely on Marlon Mack as much. So what do we think at Jacoby Brissett's for $200 more than Gardner Minshew? I actually like Brissett in GPP, and I'll probably be taking a shot on him, stacking him with Hilton. There's definitely no cash love for this because this, the Colts are going to try to run the ball. They're very hardest, but I don't know. What do you think of Jacoby this week?
Yeah, so this is the play. I think if you're going to try to, sneak a quarterback in, that's going to get overlooked, this is the play, I think. I think the bigger names, Goff and Minshew, are kind of the headlining, plays. But yeah, I like this play, for tournaments too. And you're hoping for a shootout. You're right. You really want to see them get away from the heavy run game with Mac, and if they do, then yeah, I'm hoping that T.Y. Hilton is a little healthier after the bye week. God, that'd be nice if he can get back to full speed again, because when he's on, he is a big time threat.
Let's talk about one more guy before we chase out of here, because I know we've stuck a lot of time, folks. I know we spent a lot of time on quarterback, and the guy on the screen, is he even a quarterback? I don't know. Ryan Tannehill, either you love him or hate him. I don't know how everyone feels watching this here, but the fact of the matter is he's only $4,800 versus the Chargers. Anytime there's a quarterback under 5,000 in GPP, you can take a shot. What do you think of Ryan Tannehill here? He obviously had an eye for Corey Davis. Corey Davis had 5 targets in the last game. Ryan Tannehill came in at the very, very end of the third quarter. 4 of those targets to Corey Davis came after that. So the old Tannehill Corey Davis stack this week in my light a dollar on fire lineup, like I always do.
I feel like Tannehill to Corey Davis is going to be the new the updated 2.0 version of Tannehill to Devontae Parker. It's just going to frustrate us. It's going to only happen the weeks that everybody's off of it.
Yeah.
You're right. I mean, we talk all the time about, like when you can find a starting quarterback with decent skill position pieces for under 5,000, you got to at least look at it. The matchup isn't fantastic, but it's not bad either. I mean, it's just kind of an okay matchup. There's no mystery here. Tannehill's already been announced, so it's not like it's going to be a thing where, he might not be as fully prepared. He's going into this knowing he's a starter. I think you have to have like maybe 1 or 2 lineups with it with some very, very minor exposure just to see.
You don't have to. I mean, we spent way too much time on this. We're going to move on completely, actually, because we spent way too much time on this. Let's talk about running backs. Dalvin Cook. We don't have to get into this much at all. Dalvin Cook, he's an obvious play here. He had a very rough matchup last week. He's coming off probably his worst game of the season. He has 54 total yards against the Eagles, who are unbelievable against the run. The Lions just allowed Aaron Jones, Jamal Williams to rush for 150 yards. Snacks Harrison is very good on the line, so you don't want to completely ignore his existence. But this is a pretty big bounce back game. The Vikings are going to go right back to where they should. So Dalvin Cook is always worth it. So I want to mention that 8,000. I think it's worth paying up for running back this week because I don't like some of the cheaper options because there's a lot of question marks there. So, Darius Slay will probably try to take away Stephon Diggs. Stephon Diggs is not going to be doing what he did to this secondary, what he did to the Eagles. Adam Thielen's a fine play. But, yeah, Dalvin Cook I think is worth every single penny at 8,000, but I'm not sure we have to get into that any more than I just did. The chalk of the week for everybody is this guy, Leonard Fournette. You want to chat up why he is so good other than the fact that he's facing Cincinnati?
I mean, it's just the volume. Anytime you're talking about Fournette, it's the volume. I mean, the guy is getting the vast majority of, almost all the rushing touches and, getting almost all of the targets, for the running backs. So, there was a little bit of, Raquel Armstead, he was spotted, moving around on the field at times. So yeah, he's been getting a little bit of work, but it's still all going to be all Fournette all the time.
Yeah, he's averaging over 20 carries per game, almost 6 targets per game, and the Bengals run defense is 26th in the NFL. For run defense. So I mean, yeah, it's everything.
Yeah, he's pretty safe. As safe a guarantee to get 20 plus touches as there is in the NFL right now.
Yep. Another guy I like a lot is Chris Carson. 6,500 for no other reason than kind of a light version of what we just said for Fournette. He's just constantly going to get work here. And I think this is going to be a little bit of a running game. Even though Baltimore can be thrown on, like I said before, they can be ran on too. The only reason they're not listed as a poor run defense is because teams tend to throw on them more. But you've seen in some past performances that people can and will run on them. So and be effective. So I think that the Seahawks will finally, kind of stick to their game plan a little more. I don't expect a huge game out of Russell Wilson here. I expect him to be typical, awesome Russell Wilson, being very effective. And overall, I think Carson's going to be running his ass off here. And as far as cash games go, I like it. I don't like it for GPP because I like chasing those, again, 50-point games. You can't chase a 50-point game, but I don't see that even as a possibility for Carson. So, I mean, throw Rashad Penny in if you want to get cute in GPP because he's so cheap. Yeah. But overall, I mean, that's just one of those things where at the end of the day where you're like, oh, why that asshole play Rashad Penny? He's a moron. Well, not really, because I think that they could run the ball enough. It's probably a waste of money, but it's not a horrible process. But I do like Chris Carson at 6,500.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a terrible idea, but man, don't expect anything. If you have Penny in there, you're pretty much hoping for Carson to get hurt, or just, that's honestly your most likely path to getting 15 plus points out of that.
No, I was more speaking to how I expect this game to go.
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing that I think will prevent Carson from having a big game is if they're really running the ball like that much. But I expect them to not take advantage of the Baltimore secondary as much as other teams have. Why don't we talk about the San Francisco 49ers a bit? Kevin Coleman is now priced up over Matt Breida. I guess they're going to flip-flop constantly. Is that the way it's going to go?
Well, no. I think the breakdown of the work has been that Braid is the 20 to 20 guy and Coleman's the red zone guy. Not that neither one of those guys, exclusively will not see work.
Coleman got more. Well, Breida cost more than Coleman last week. Coleman cost more than Breida this week. Coleman has outsnapped Breida 2 weeks in a row. It's close. Coleman's 5,600 and Breida's 5,300.
Yeah, I mean, this is, the gap has closed between the two as far as the pricing. So, but yeah, I mean, I think either one of these guys is fine. I think I lean a little bit more towards Coleman at this point. I don't know. How do you feel about it?
I don't want it at all. It's at Washington, and both plays are good. I won't argue against either of them. If I had to go with one, I would take Breida, and I'd take him in GPP, only because I think he has the ability to break off those huge games because he has that in him to, give those big runs we saw against Cleveland. I don't want either, though, because I just don't know how this is going to fall. They're not cheap enough to me to take a risk on either of them in cash because I don't know, again, how the work will fall and where the big play will come. So I'd rather just avoid it altogether, but that's just me. They're both good plays, though, so I won't argue the two. But of anything, if I were to play them, I'd play Breida and I'd play him in GPP. All right, well, moving on.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the Bills, another ridiculous setup here. Singletary practice today. So it looks like he will probably be the guy. The only issue here is he's just coming back. So while we do expect him to have a lot of work going forward and they have a beautiful schedule for the second half, it's his first game back. He'll probably still be splitting it quite a bit with Frank Gore. It's another one versus Miami. They're probably both worth playing. They're just not cheap enough for me to bother. Again, the same as Coleman, Breida, Singletary, and Gore. I mean, I'd rather play Coleman or Breida at Washington than Singletary or Gore. But if I were to play one of them, I'd go with Singletary.
Yeah, I think probably more upside there, but Gore safer floor. But yeah, this is tough because we have no idea what the workload split is going to be here. I mean, even before Singletary got hurt, it's not like there was I mean, I think Gore had a pretty solid edge there of the two in terms of the actual workload, but Singletary definitely looked more explosive. I mean, it's Frank Gore. He's just he's going to plod along and do old man things. But yeah, I think as tasty as this matchup is, I don't think I'm going to end up using either one of these two.
Yeah, I mean it's season long. I'd actually start both if I had them, but yeah, for DFS it's just too confusing here. Moving on down the line, someone that is probably way too damn cheap is Josh Jacobs. All the rookies. Why don't they have photos? But yeah, Josh Jacobs is against Green Bay. By now,
Well,
everyone
listen,
knows.
when you're a small, fly by night, organization like DraftKings, where you're not really pulling in a lot of revenue, I can understand how these guys don't have these photos. It's tough. It's tough. They're barely scraping by, Matt. Give them a break.
I don't know. Maybe there's a reason. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's a thing.
It's hazing. It's actually hazing. We should probably
agreement they have. But anyway, he's $5,000 against going into Lambeau. Everything about this screams great game. They lean on him to their own detriment. He gets tons of work. They try even passing him the ball. He had that great game against Chicago. The problem here is that Tyrell Williams is not going to play. It looks like. I mean, everything they look like it's not going well. It's actually going the opposite of well. They just traded for Zay Jones. I don't think that matters a whole lot here. The Packers are known for allowing runners to get some yardage, especially short yardage. They don't care about that, and they want to cover deep. They have no reason to do that here. Zay Jones and Hunter Renfrow and Darren Waller, I wouldn't really trust any of them against Green Bay. I mean, Jair Alexander hasn't really been shadowing people. Whoever he ends up covering is just erased, but he hasn't been shadowing anyone. So it's not necessarily where you can like maybe take one out of the equation and then rely on the other people. They just kind of go around everywhere. So if Green Bay was ever going to stack the box, this is it. So I don't know. It makes sense here, but for $5,000, I'm definitely going to take a shot because we know you can run on Green Bay, but it's just there's nothing else on that team that scares you in this matchup. So why wouldn't Green Bay put an extra man in the box here and just try to stop Jacobs, a guy that more than likely they're going to lean on this entire game because it's kind of their bread and butter.
Yeah, he's definitely going to have a little bit more focus on him, especially with how depleted that receiver group is. I mean, like you mentioned, plantar fasciitis for Tyrell. I mean, they cut JJ Nelson I think a week ago. Zay just got there. I don't think he's really going to have any impact. I mean, at best, he'll know a handful. He'll have like a couple of packages worth of plays, but I don't think it's anything.
I think they'll have to be in there with Tyrell out, but yeah, I mean, he'll be out there.
Very limited. Yeah, it's going to be a very limited, route tree for him at this point. They're going to have to really dumb down the language, especially with Gruden's system. He'll pick up Spider 2Y banana pretty quick, but other than that, who knows? And and if he can't crack the receiver rotation in Buffalo, there are some guys we like there, but I mean, you would have thought that for as high as they were on him just like 2 years ago or a year ago, that he would have been more in their plans there. So I don't know. I think it's definitely going to be a lot more Jacobs and a lot more of both tight ends. I think Waller and Moreau get a good bit of look here, but that's tough because Green Bay has been pretty tough against tight ends.
Yep. The next guy we're going to talk about, you never thought you'd hear me talk about ever, everybody. I'm going to recommend somebody, and his name is Jamal Williams. Aaron Jones is $7,100. Why? This obviously looks like a 50-50 timeshare at best, at worst, whatever. It's a 50-50 timeshare.
This was purely at the mercy of the Monday pricing release. This is that's what this was. Honestly.
Yes. So he's sitting here at 4,900 versus Oakland in a game. Green Bay is probably going to be up a lot. So I don't mind doing this even in cash because it's so cheap. So, I mean, for 4,900, I love it because not only did Jamal Williams play half the snaps pretty much, or, he got more than half the carries. A lot of it had to do with Aaron Jones' fumble and drop touchdown pass. But either way, he's going to get a lot of work in this one, and he's very cheap. And he not only did he play, did he get all that work, he looked good doing it. So I'm not going to say another bad word about him. He gave that mermaid speech, and then he got knocked out cold, and then he came in here against Detroit and had himself a heck of a game. So for 4,900 at home versus Oakland, I like him, and I like him to actually have a pretty big game here. So yeah, I guess Jamal Williams, folks, I've done it. I recommended him, and I'm actually feeling good about it.
What do you think? Matt's nightmare, everyone. This is Matt's nightmare right here.
In our notes, you have. I believe that is Chris Thompson sitting there. Isn't he out for like weeks? Am I wrong?
Is he?
I thought he had turf toe. Am I wrong, chat? Where's Chad at on this one? I think Chris Thompson has turf toe, and I think he's out for like a few weeks.
Yeah,
so we're gonna go ahead and skip on by that.
That's not paying attention to the injuries for the Redskins on that one.
All right, so we're just gonna hop into wide receivers. Let's talk about all the Rams. We've already discovered why Jared Goff is going to be a good play this week. If you missed it from early on, the Falcons have no pass rush. Didn't sack Mariota or Watson the last 2 weeks. They're just awful against the pass. We all know this. It's in a dome. Their Rams are looking to recover in an important game here. So they made the big trade for help me out, Jalen Ramsey, and they really want to get a win here versus Atlanta, and it's very possible. So I expect them to put the foot on the gas. So all the wide receivers, Cooper Kupp naturally is the most expensive at $7,400. Then you have Woods at $5,900 and Cooks at $5,400. So what do you think? Like Cooper Kupp looks like the guy here in cash. I mean, he's probably just in for like a monster game. He's probably worth every cent. But do either of those other guys, you're going to give any love for the other people? I would say Cooks just because he's the cheapest. Why not take the $500 discount in a game that's probably built for him having a few big plays?
Yeah, I think, if you're going to take the risk, if you want to shoot for the high upside, then I think that's Cooks. You're hoping that he can just break a few deep, plays here. And, as the cheapest option there, I mean, this is pretty textbook kind of tournament play for me. Very high upside, low floor potential guy, but I mean, the price is pretty good. So, and man, that matchup's nice. So yeah, I think it's pretty much Kupp in whatever format you want him. And then I think Cooks is probably the higher upside guy. Make of that whatever you will. But and honestly, I think Woods is a fine play too. If you're looking in that, kind of 6,000 to 5,500 price range. I would expect that people are going to be off of Woods because I think he was kind of in a bunch of people's player pools last week and did nothing. So I think you might just see a little bit of just the recency bias just tend to push people more towards either Cooks or Kupp, and Woods might be the odd man out. But I think honestly, all three of these guys are fine.
Yep, I agree. Yeah, we don't have to get into that. It's all kind of obvious. We'll skip by a couple other people real quick. Adam Thielen, we already said earlier. Darius Slay will probably slow down Stephon Diggs. Everyone I'd really cool the Jets on Diggs. He took advantage of a very bad Eagles secondary last week. Yeah. And Dalvin Cook will be back to doing his normal thing. So it'll be the Cook Thielen show again, but I expect Thielen to have a nice game here. I think that they probably learned their lesson by now, and they're going to try to involve the wide receivers more. So Thielen is still Thielen. He'll be fine. Tyler Lockett. I know earlier I said that I really like Chris Carson in this one, but Tyler Lockett's damn safe, especially Will Dissly out. This is the guy he's going to rely on to go for most of his targets. So Tyler Lockett, he's only 6,600 versus Baltimore. You can still throw on them like crazy. So Tyler Lockett's damn safe in cash or GPP. Nothing really to, no surprises there. And then Larry Fitzgerald, for the same reasons we said for Kyler Murray. They throw a ton of plays. He's going to get a ton of targets. Christian Kirk is back. But it's not like Larry was seeing any extra targets with him out anyway. So Larry Fitzgerald at 6,100, Kirk at an even 5,000. I almost want to go Kirk here against the Giants because that's a pretty big discount.
It is. I will say in the limited time that they were together, what we saw was a bigger ADOT for Fitz when Kirk was there. So if you're shooting for kind of the more upside play, I think it's actually Fitz, which kind of goes against a lot of who he's been the last few years. You kind of picture him more as like possession type guy, but the way he's being used there, when they have both those big slot guys in there, he's been more of the downfield guy. So keep that in mind. And you're right. I think either one of these guys is a really good play. It's a really nice matchup. I mean, it just all depends on what you have for salary. Honestly, I think you're fine either way here.
Yeah. Like I said, I mean, When they're on the field together, they're relatively close. Fitzgerald had got a lot of long receptions, which would separate him early in the year. I think they'll end up being more even. So I mean, I do lean Kirk, but it's $1,100 discount. So
Yeah.
I love it. They're both great. Play them both with Kyler. I don't like stacking two wide receivers. Some people like doing that. I never do. I'd be fine with it this week, but I still won't because, I think that caps your ceiling, unless you're expecting Arizona to score 60.
Yeah, it's got to be a real crazy shootout for a 2 receiver stack to really hit out, for you correctly.
Yeah. Last week, DJ Chark was held in check like we kind of expected him to. Marshawn Lattimore has been pretty solid as of late. So no surprises there, but, jump right back on this week. He's 6,000.
3 weeks in a row he's held top receiver down. He's doing good Marshawn Lattimore stuff again, which is
absolutely.
And
right. So at Cincinnati, DJ Chark. We kind of told you already about Gardner Minshew. You already know what Chark has done all season. Don't be afraid of last week. Get right back on the horse this week. Anything to add about DJ?
No. I think he's a pretty safe play. If you were scared off by the Jags last week, just hop right back in. You'll be fine.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of people so far. I mean, as far as the people that we love, I mean, Cooper Kupp, I believe, is pretty much the must play here for cash. He's I don't know. I want to say he's probably the safest guy on the entire board for any skill position, right? So that's so far who we like as far as nothing you don't know. But just to kind of recap for anyone just joining us here, here's a play I love this week: T.Y. Hilton, Houston wide receiver 1. I should say going after Houston with a wide receiver 1. They get burned left and right, with the exception of last week, which I guess that Tyreek Hill did catch some balls, but it wasn't exactly like it was kind of fluky. But still, wide receiver 1s really can really take care of Houston here, and T.Y. Hilton is that for the Indianapolis Colts. I already said earlier that I would look into starting Jacoby Brissett as well. This is more of a GPP thing too, because with Hilton, he doesn't really get traditionally that touchdown upside you're looking for. So that's something that maybe could cap his safety floor, even though that's something you'd really be looking for in like a tournament play to try to have like that big game. But again, while he was out and while everyone else was injured, there wasn't a real obvious person for Jacoby to look at. And I think now it's like, treasure what you have situation with Hilton. So 5,900 versus Houston. I think a lot of people will overlook this just because Hilton's not having that traditional year and people are still not confident in Jacoby, even though he's been playing fine.
Well, I think Hilton's, hitting his normal tradition of getting hurt, right on time. This is perfect for him. This is he does everything.
It is what it is. Hey, in DFS, you don't need to care about that. If he's hurt, you don't worry about it. He's back. Welcome back. So I don't know. What do you think of T.Y. Hilton this week? I know that it's someone we both kind of agreed on, but do you have any extra thoughts?
No, I mean, just he is a big play waiting to happen. Anytime he gets targeted, he can break one. My biggest fear for this game, from just a gameplay standpoint, is that both of these teams, I think, especially lately with Houston, want to establish that run. So this could definitely be a game where it's kind of a tight first half and things open up in the second. But yeah, I think if you really want this thing to be like the peak output, you're going to need this game to pick up pretty quick, which could happen. But man, the rush success that Houston's had the last few weeks kind of scares me a little bit. I'm not quite as bullish on this, I think, as you are.
I am, because I said 2 rules, folks. There are 2. Whoever's facing PJ Williams and whoever the wide receiver 1 is against Houston, it literally is foolproof. And I'm going to continue to bang the drum until it no longer works. We're going to kind of skip down quite a bit here in the pricing here. Oh, actually, no. There's one guy that I want to talk about here. How about Golden Tate? This is a guy that kind of came out of nowhere last week, in a tough matchup versus the Patriots. I know people were kind of aware of him coming back. It's not like it was any kind of injury. It was a suspension for, the whole thing with the fertility drugs. But What do you think about him going forward in general? Sterling Shepard, I believe, is still going to be out with a concussion, right?
He's trending towards not playing.
Evan Ingram is back, and Saquon Barkley is back.
Yeah.
And in this one, they are facing Arizona, which is great. But Patrick Peterson is back. So originally I was thinking, Slayton. I was just like, oh my God. I was looking at this matchup a couple weeks ago, and I forgot Peterson was coming back. So all of a sudden, damn it. Slayton is kind of a guy you need to toss aside, I think, because you're not sure what to get there. I mean, there's going to be plenty of people taking a shot on him, and he's really talented. But it won't be me. But I expect Golden Tate here to probably come back with another big game. The only problem is Evan Ingram is back. So what do we think as far as target share expectations? Do you, in this nice matchup, is there any way you would trust him in even cash, or is this just a GPP play for you?
I think it might just be GPP. So the one thing that worries me is if you just are looking at that game line, that 64-yard touchdown was, it was a lucky play. I mean, the corner was right there. We kind of, Nick and I talked about this in the missing recap pod that disappeared on the internet. But like the coverage was really tight on that one, and he just was very lucky that the defender got a hand on the ball, and it still just kind of bounced up in front of him, and he was able to take it in.
Main thing here is the 9 targets. That's the thing we loved. But
I think he's definitely safe to get a high number of targets. I think the last 2 weeks are a perfect kind of a floor ceiling for him. I think at worst he'll see, in the neighborhood of 6-7 targets and could be in double digits. Honestly, if I was Arizona, I would have Peterson shadow Ingram. And I wouldn't worry as much about Slayton and Tate as Ingram, but that's just me. I don't think that's going to happen. I think probably Peterson stays with Slayton, and if Tate ever goes out wide, they'll throw him out there.
I think they're better off. I think they're better off actually letting Peterson just shadow Slayton and double teaming Ingram. And then which either way, lines up for Golden Tate to have a nice game.
I mean, definitely Ingram is, the straw that stirs the drink there for that passing offense at this point. So
the straw that stirs the drink. I don't know. Am I an idiot? I've never heard of that before.
That's a normal phrase.
Never heard it before. Okay. All right, let's move on to John Brown. Smokey here. Questionable. Real big here on the screen. Questionable. Hurt his groin in practice. Hope your groin's better, buddy. If he's fine, I mean, all systems go versus Miami. I know you mentioned Xavier Howard. For 5,500, I'm not sure I care. This Brown is always a GPP play. It was just a tournament. Some people ask me, I know Peter Howard brought it up earlier. Why do you always say if you like a guy in cash, you should like a guy in GPP? Which I kind of agree to a point. All my cash lineups I put in GPP. But there's certain people I only want in tournaments because I don't feel comfortable with their floor. So, I mean, there's guys in cash that I love because I think they have a safe floor and a high ceiling. But there's some guys in tournament play that we like for really high ceilings, but we don't know about their floor. Especially a groin injury and a boom or bust guy like John Brown, where he really needs big plays to get going. And we don't know about the game script in this one. Bills can get up really big and not want to throw the ball. So there's a lot of reasons to maybe not like him in cash. But for 5,500 and Cole Beasley for 4,700, if you want to get weird. I like him for the rest of the season too. You can see tons of looks from Josh Allen. Bills are coming off their bye week. Miami is pretty damn awful at everything, but they are especially bad at pass defense, 26th in the league versus wide receivers. So what do you think of Brown and Beasley?
I mean, I think both those guys are solid plays.
Get Cole some love on the screen here. Let's toss him up there.
I only worry a little bit about the ceiling for Beasley. I think if I had to pick one, definitely. I mean, I love John Brown. That injury today. Come on, man. He's in such a good spot if he can. Recover from that. But Beasley. I don't know. I mean, I'll probably have a bit of exposure to him, but I'm not going to feel great about it.
I like him for the rest of the year. I mean, this is a thing where I think he's cheap enough where I think that not only can he get enough targets and I like PPR type scoring, but I think that if he finds the end zone, it could be pretty easy. But I'd rather obviously go Brown because he could have that huge game. Next guy I want to talk about is Auden Tate. And this is someone that people are just not giving love to in general. Let's take a look here. I'm bringing up NFL Savant, which, by the way, is a site no one really brings up too much. I know there's Air Yards, DFStatistics, there's a whole bunch of really great sites out there. But NFL Savant is a really great one that you can go to for a bunch of pretty useful information, like and just visualizations here. Right now on the screen, which I know is a little harder to see. Red zone targets for the Cincinnati Bengals, and this is for the year. Down here is Tyler Boyd, 3 completions, 3 red zone targets. Giovanni Bernard's got 4. Tyler Eifert 5, and up here it's Auden Tate with 9.
I mean, that fits perfectly with the size profile of the guy and the skill profile for him. I mean, he's not a burner. He's a big dude. He leverages his body well.
Yes,
he's exactly what you draw up when you're just talking about a red zone target on the outside.
And here's passing targets for the year. You see Auden Tate right there in the second spot with 39. So he's not a guy with like the greatest hands, kind of like John Ross, but he was seeing all the red zone targets even before Ross went down. So Ross is still down. So, that's a reason here. He's 4,500. Yeah, 4,500 versus Jacksonville. So he's just a thing where everyone was like really high on him. Before the, as soon as Ross went down, I know Matthew Berry was mentioning him, Auden Tate, like everyone's just like, look at the red zone targets. And then he had that kind of lackluster game where it just didn't look kind of like I guess he didn't get the expectations you wanted. He had a very slow game, and then he did reach the end zone at the very end. But then he came back last week, had 12 targets, caught 5 of them. And for 91 yards, didn't actually reach the end zone, but he has another good matchup here. Tyler Boyd will be getting all of the attention. Auden Tate's still going to be doing his thing. I don't really have much confidence in the guy throwing the ball, but again, 12 targets are 12 targets here. So they're going to be behind. They're going to be throwing the ball. And I think Auden Tate for 4,500 is a steal. And if you're worried about John Ross with Xavier Howard or the game script or the groin injury, Auden Tate is a good backup, and he's just not getting, I don't think, the attention he really deserves for how cheap he is.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's a solid play. He's definitely a very solid, red zone play, like you mentioned. And if you used him last week, definitely he was much better than Boyd. I mean, Boyd was just murdered a lot of lineups last week. I know I had him in a few spots, and it was not a great output from him. So, you could see a bit of, recency bias, just kind of juke the ownership there a little bit towards a little more towards Auden Tate this week than Boyd. But yeah, no more Ramsey. Boye has not been performing as well as he has in the past. So, yeah, Jacksonville, not exactly the feared defense that they once were. Aside from that one random Thursday night game they played where they had 9 sacks in that game. My only concern is just that, neither one of these offenses are really high-powered, fast-moving offenses. So this could just kind of devolve into just an ugly, slow game. I don't think it's going to be a huge shootout, which would really make Tate and Boyd too, pretty attractive on the other side.
I actually like, even if it got in an ugly game, I like Tate fine still because Joe Mixon can't do anything with that offensive line. Yeah. So yeah. I'm just thinking their only option here is to throw. One guy, because we're running now, we're going to try to get down to 9:30 here. We're going to run a little over, folks, but we're close enough. You wanted to talk about this guy, which I have no interest in talking about, so I'm just going to sit back and let you talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, this might be a bad play. I'm interested in it, though.
Agree, it's a bad play. Let's move on. I'm kidding.
Dante Pettis, 4,100 at Washington. Pettis has been bad this year. But I think there are some signs of improvement here. I think in a couple of weeks that we'll be talking about Pettis, just in the same way that we were last year towards the end of the year. His snaps have been increasing. We've been seeing better results out of him. Even Shanahan today, or I think earlier this week, was talking extensively about him and some of his press availability, and has liked some of the things he's seen from him the last few weeks in practice. So that's translating to a bit more opportunity on the field. None of these San Francisco receivers have really stepped up at any point to kind of emerge in that offense. I think we all kind of thought it was going to be Pettis, heading into the season. And, I think that, like I said, this might be the game. I think that turns it around. Debo is hurt. So you might see a little bit more from Pettis and Goodwin in this one. And it's a really good matchup. So
that was actually the key word. You said Debo's hurt, because that was actually the only reason Pettis came on at the end of the year. It was him and Kendrick Bourne. Everyone else was hurt. And that was actually the only reason he got the targets, which I tried to hammer home, which is why I'm not surprised at his poor season. But you said Debo is out. Last week, George Kittle had 8 targets. Second was Pettis with 6, which isn't like great, but it's fine. You're still second on the team here, and you're going at Washington. So I do see the line of thinking. I guess I'm just stubborn.
I would say it's very risky, and nobody's really going to be on it. So, I mean, if it hits and you have it, it's definitely going to help in a big way.
Yeah.
In the tournament.
And here's the last guy we're going to talk about, a wide receiver. Hey, he has a photo, Alan Lazard.
Hey.
The Lizard King here. He probably – is he chalk for 3,000? I mean, they obviously didn't price.
I think the perception of him, after he played such a pivotal role down the stretch of that game on Monday, and in a big time game, I think he's definitely going to be a little over-owned. I'll be guilty of it. I'm definitely going to have him out there.
For 3,000, you have to, folks. You have to.
Yeah, he's positional minimum. So, and again, this is another, victim of some of the Monday night, performance prior to Monday pricing release. So,
and here's the main thing. Here's the main thing for Lazard. Everyone's like, "Oh, it's 3,000." Oh, he had an okay game. He had 4 catches on 5 targets for 65 yards and a touchdown. He came into the game incredibly late. So don't hold that against him. And you're thinking, oh, well, it's just a bunch of crappy wide receivers there. Geronimo is out. Devontae is out. MVS is still there. Still not good. Jake Kumaro didn't look that great. But the most important thing to know here is it's not a hodgepodge of wide receivers. Aaron Rodgers asked for Lazard to come into the game. He actually physically went over to the wide receiver coordinator and demanded Lazard get put into this game. We then talked to the coach and made it happen. Aaron Rodgers made sure he was put into this game and immediately fed him the ball over and over again. So I see no reason if Devontae and Geronimo out why that won't continue. So for 3,000, I don't care if it's 100% ownership. I mean, I'm throwing him in most of my lineups.
I mean, this is how you pay up at running back. Is squeezing in Lazard. So and to another name to mention, you already covered everybody else, but like Shepard, he did himself no favors in that game. I mean, he was getting opportunities early and he blew it. He big time blew it. So the fact, as soon as I heard that story that Rodgers specifically went over and asked for him, like, this is the guy. We've been trying to figure out who the wide receiver 2 is going to be this whole year. And really it kind of, the buck kind of stopped at Kumaro as far as like going down the depth chart, and like maybe we were wrong. We should have just kept going. We should have just like slid on down to Lazard. This might be the guy.
So everybody, Alan Lazard, $3,000, absolute chalk. Let's skip through the tight ends here real quick. You may have heard of this guy, George Kittle. We're not going to talk about him. He's great. For 6,700 at Washington, that's perfectly fine if you want to go that direction. Evan Ingram. I mentioned earlier a few chalk people I thought it'd be the chalk of the week. This is probably the chalk of the week, right? Evan Ingram. I mean, we already know versus Arizona.
Between the opportunity, the matchup, no Shepard. Yeah, I mean, definitely going to be the biggest chalk, I think.
Yeah, we don't have to get into that. I mean, you know what he is. Austin Hooper is fine. If we want to take a look at him, we are throwing up everyone's picture. Fine. Mark Andrews, fine. So let's get into some people that are a little more interesting. You know what? Interesting or not, is he chalk too? I mean, how much chalk can there be?
Well, here's the thing. I think Henry is going to be probably the 3rd highest owned tight end this week. It wouldn't shock me if he's 2nd highest owned. Although I'm thinking more from the industry side. I know you got to throw in some more casual players, but Tennessee has not been good versus the tight end. They actually are bottom 10 defense in the entire league. It's the one thing they don't do well. Henry came back in. He had 8 catches on 9 targets for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. He's tied at 17 on the year already.
Yeah, already.
Yeah.
So yeah, Hunter Henry. He's chalk for a reason. I don't know if I could shy away from Ingram, but that's a pretty big discount. $2,500 for Henry. It could be a double tight end week.
It's possible. Yeah. He's definitely going to be heavily owned, and I don't think we need to go too much more into it, honestly.
Oh, number 88 here. No picture Dawson Knox. They've been targeting him pretty solidly down there in Buffalo. It's against Miami, which is obviously already a pretty safe thing. But if you take a look at the red zone, they really haven't really gotten down there to score too many touchdowns. Buffalo has scored some touchdowns on defensively, and then some big ones through the air. But overall, they haven't really gotten down there. But while John Brown is going to be getting all the deep looks, Cole Beasley has been getting a lot of the intermediate stuff. They've been working Dawson Knox more and more in there. So the main thing here is he's only 3,300 against Miami. So what are you thinking as far as Dawson Knox goes in GPS this week? He is third on the entire team in targets, which isn't saying much. He's behind John Brown and Cole Beasley, like we said. But, for being this cheap against the Dolphins in a game where we're maybe semi-worried about John Brown's availability, what are you thinking with Knox?
I actually really loved this matchup before I saw that Tyler Kroft was practicing again this week. I don't think that Kroft's going to eat too much into Dawson Knox's potential targets, but he could. That little bit of uncertainty makes me a little more uncomfortable with it. I don't think that I don't think you have to free up enough salary to squeeze Knox in, but I don't think it's a bad play. I definitely think there's going to be some people on this. I don't think it's horrible. I just think there's better plays.
Yep. The last tight end you want to talk about, I am not too on personally.
Again, this is more of a developing.
Hey, by the way, everybody, the Raiders just signed Darren Waller to a contract extension through 2023. So for anyone maybe thinking they try to trade him or anyone to get it ain't happening.
There were people that was the theory. That was a theory that people were espousing. So I thought that was a bit ridiculous, but he's
there now.
Anyway, so talking about Moreau here, just 2,700. I think it wouldn't shock me if just for this week, they go a lot heavier with a 2 tight end set. I was looking at just some of the play frequencies as far as formations earlier, and Oakland was the highest percentage in terms of 22 type alignments with just a single receiver out there. They had about 20% of their plays in that alignment. So Oakland definitely, I think, wants to get both Moreau and Waller onto the field at the same time, and it's a good idea. I mean, honestly, Waller alone is enough of a matchup problem, but when you have to account for 2 very solid pass catching tight ends, it's tough. That puts a real strain on defenses. It wouldn't shock me if that becomes a bit more of a focal point for them for this week until they can get until they get Jones worked in the offense, until they get Tyrell Williams healthy again. They're going to have a tough time of it, I think, against Green Bay. I mean, that's a really good defense. So this is a very speculative play. I think Moreau is going to have some better days ahead. But just I wanted to mention it just because I think it could be an interesting play.
Yep. And now we get to the very best part of building a DFS lineup. This is the funnest part everyone is always dreams of. We're going to pick a defense. All right. The Patriots aren't playing this week, aren't on the main slate, I should say. Yeah. So we don't have to worry about that. The Buffalo Bills. Is there anyone else that is really worth taking with the way that Miami is playing that we shouldn't expect this to just be there's so many ways to save money. Should you just pay for Miami this week? I know San Francisco's at Washington. That's a fine play. I love the Packers at home versus Oakland for probably $1,000 less. I'll probably go in that direction. You got something like the Bears way down at 3,000, even though they just lost their best run defender. But Alvin Kamara could be out for that game, and if that happens, all of a sudden, Bears. But what are you thinking here? We don't have to get into every single team. So what are you thinking as far as your strategy for defense this week?
Yeah, I mean, just of the ones you mentioned, I think the Bears, I mean, I don't understand why they're priced way down at 3,000. Yeah, I mean, if Kamara can't go, and Murray doesn't really worry me that much. Yes, the Bears are going to be down a guy, but they're a really good defense top to bottom. So to be 3,000 doesn't make a ton of sense to me. Yeah, and then after that, you got to start if you're gonna take a risk at something, you're gonna start looking at defenses that are just going to see a high volume of plays against them, and you're gonna hope that something crazy happens. So, I mean, maybe you could see something from the Giants at 2,500.
You just suggested the Giants. I love it.
Yeah. Well,
I hate it, but I love that you did it.
This is just how the theory works. You're looking at high volume against them, and you're giving yourself a chance of something happening here.
Hey, if you want to get sneaky, throw the Redskins in there, everybody, because it's Jimmy Garoppolo. You never know. I mean, I know, we all know, but
Yeah, I mean, unlike last week where I think everybody was on the Jets below like the salary floor, like none of these options are super appealing. Honestly. Yeah.
I'd pay up. I think if Kamara's out, you can go down to the Bears. Other than that, I'm sticking near the top here. I think Packers, Jaguars, 49ers, Bills is where you want to stick. I think Bills, 49ers, Packers is where I'm picking from. If I have enough money, I'll go with the Bills. If I need to save, I'm fine with either the Packers or 49ers. The Packers are significantly less. I'll probably go with Green Bay.
Yep, I think that's fine too.
Yep. All right, everybody. Thank you for sticking around for our first live show. If you stuck through the entire thing, why didn't you say hi? Why didn't you say hi in the chat? So, let us know what you think. Let us know on at DFStatistics on Twitter. If you like the live shows here, we just wanted to see if we can get some live interaction. I know it was kind of weird. It was our very first show, at least doing live. We're going to try to pull this down and put it in podcast form. But Scott, where can everyone find you if they want to chase you down and scream at you for suggesting the Giants defense?
Listen, let's not make that the focus. I'm on Twitter. I'm at SMICH_5, and I put out my weekly player pool article on DFStatistics. Usually goes out Fridays, sometimes Saturdays, but yeah, it'll be out before you really are going to need to do some heavy lineup building.
All right, if you want to follow me, you can follow me on Twitter at Matt Williams, MATTWI77IAMS. You can find me on ffmerks.com. If you want to get any more official breakdown, a more in-depth breakdown, you can always hire FF Mercenary. Go to ffmerks.com. We are always giving out free advice on the podcast and on Twitter. You can always shout out to us. We'll answer them. But again, if you want to talk to us one-on-one, we can build an entire lineup with you. We can talk to you about our process. Go to ffmerks.com. It's we have a lot of really fun people on staff. So thank you for listening and watching the DFStatistics podcast. We will be back next week. See you, everybody.
Good luck.